folks, and welcome to this week's show. This week's show is a little bit different. We're going to be doing an album on debut albums. Where do we start? There are so many amazing debut albums. Some behind me on the picture there. Many of them don't make my list, but that's another issue. And there's so many. I mean, when I did the list, Peter, I came up with about 40 albums, which I would describe as five-star albums, and trying to cut them down has been an absolute nightmare. But why do you think we've chosen? Why have we gone through debut albums? Do you want to explain to people, Peter?
I think debut albums, because when someone releases a debut album, that's their life's work to that point, and sometimes a debut album they can either be a band finding their feet, or it can be something mind-blowing straight out of the gate. It can be the work of a group of people that have just really clicked, and something incredible happens. And then often I've found with those, nothing much ever happens ever again afterwards.
Yeah, no, it's true. And an album as well, the debut album often can be the manifesto for the band as well. This is the route that we're going to go down, or give an indication of greatness that may follow. But as you say, they might just burn out really brightly, very, very quickly, and the rest of the stuff might just turn into dross, and that happens to a lot of bands. I mean, one great album's better than non-great albums. Let's be honest. So what we've done, because we were struggling so hard, we decided we'd do 20. We're not going to be here all day, folks, so don't worry. We're going to keep it short. And what we are going to do is we're going to pick a number of the albums that we choose and do 10-minute specials on individual albums. So they're going to be available fairly soon, hopefully. So there we go. So Peter, as ever, I'm going to let you go first today. And you tell me what have you got in at 20?
Right. Well, first of all, can I just say that mine aren't in order necessarily. I've put them in order for the purpose of our show. But if someone shuffled them, I wouldn't really mind. Every one of them is a 5-star album, so no need to.
Same here.
So in at number 20, I've got a very new album called Nails by a band called Benefits. And this is, it's agit punk completely, but with an insane level of weird electronica over the top. It's extremely political, and every single song is a political song, and as they put it, is about the slow winding death of the English dream. And it's just an absolute belter of an album. It's really discordant. The strange thing about it is that before this came along, I've been listening to a lot of stuff like this, like Uniform and The Body, and Uniform and The Body when they did a collab together. This very weird kind of insane electronica punk. And then, Benefits came along. And the guy that fronts it, Kingsley, used to be in a band called the Chapman Family that I absolutely loved. So when he came along doing this, I was like, whoa, this is so fitting with what I'm listening to now. And so it is absolutely incredible album, very of its time. And if they collapse into nothing, even if they don't do anything again after this album's going to stand as a snapshot of the culture wars that we're in and the austerity and all of that. It really is, they're spitting bile. It's rather wonderful.
All right, well, that's interesting. Like you, mine, you could just literally throw them up in the air. There are so many albums I've missed out, and there's some albums that I've got that are similar to other albums. So what I've done is I'm going to say, this is such and such an album, but also could have been this album, which hasn't made me list. So there you have it. Cheating, but never mind. My number 20 I've got in is Block Party with Silent Alarm. It's just a great album. It's an album that captures a number of sounds such as Pill, The Cure, Fallout Boy 3, Blur, punk, a great musicianship. Came out in 2005. The drummer on it, Matt Tong, is absolutely fantastic, actually.
Hmm.
So the album's really angular, really powerful, but there's also space as well at times. I absolutely love it. The production is top draw. Check out the album. It is a really great album. They didn't do an album anywhere near as good again, like we were saying earlier on. Burn Bright to start with. They've come back with other albums, but for me, just not as good. Some great songs in it though. Eating Glass, Banquet, Price of Gasoline. It's just a great album with great grooves, great tunes. So that's my number 20, Block Party Silent Alarm. What have you got at number 19?
I have got X, Los Angeles. Um, just that wonderful LA punk, discordant noise. Um, when I first heard this, it just kind of blew my mind. And I've got this in rather than the first Ramones album
Right, okay.
because it's 1980, so 4 years after Ramones, but it's just got that Exene Cervenka's vocals just push it into another realm for me. And yeah, it's just got a discordance that I really like. Their cover of Soul Kitchen, they've actually got Ray Manzarek playing on that.
Yeah.
And it's just such an achingly cool album. And it starts with the track "Your phone's off the hook, but you're not," and I just think is a corking way to start an album. So yeah, number 19 is Los Angeles by X.
Yeah, good choice actually. Right, my number 19 is Black Sabbath, the debut album, self-titled. It's just a great album. It's the first real metal album. It's genre defining. I would actually have it higher, but there are a couple of covers on the UK version. And I see cover, and that's due to the record company, by the way. And so I class covers a little bit as cheating. That's why Led Zeppelin 1 doesn't make my list, even though it's a 5-star and an incredible album, because there's so many covers on that album. I think there's only 3 original tracks on it. So yeah, Black Sabbath. It's fantastic musicianship. The whole band are amazing. I mean, Geezer Butler's a great bass player. Tony Iommi invented this sort of guitar style with down tuning later on. Changed the gauge of the strings. But Bill Ward, what a drummer. What a drummer. Really heavy, swings, has space. It's just beautiful. The whole album's just brilliant. It's a manifesto. The first opening bars with that rain coming down just sums up exactly what type of album you're going to get. And you got other tracks on it, like the bluesy type Wizard, Nibs, fantastic. Ozzy sounds great on it, even though he's not a conventional singer. So my number 19 is Black Sabbath, genre-defining album. So what are we having at number 18, Peter?
Number 18, I have The Scream by Susie and the Banshees.
Right, yeah.
And of course, we have discussed that in great length. Genre defining, as we've said.
Yeah.
Just an amazing album. So yeah, we don't need to go over that one again.
We don't.
But it absolutely had to be on the list.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Agreed. And by the way, folks, it's on our Susie and the Banshees show. Please go and check it out. Right, my number 18 is Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division. Came out in 79, produced by Martin Hannett. Many people's favorite album of all time. It is a great album. Recorded at 10cc Strawberry Studios. It's just superb. John Savage describes it as the Northern Gothic statement, which it is. It's got some really unusual tones and sounds on it. Stephen Morris used a synth drum on it, which was used by Khan on Tego Mago. Great album, by the way. It's one of the early post-punk albums, followed by we've got bands like Wire beforehand and Public Image Magazine, Susie, and it comes in that sort of grouping, if you like. Some great songs, Dear the Lord, She's Lost Control. My favorite on is Shadow Play, which is just great. Clearly influenced by the Banshees on tracks such as Wilderness. And finally, Curtis's baritone voice, again, it's unusual. He's not technically a great singer, but he just works. It works with the album, and it's just absolutely sublime. So there we have it. Unknown Pleasures is my number 18. What have you got in it? 17.
I have got Unknown Pleasures by Joy Division. Of course, yeah, I mean, you said everything there. It is an absolute masterpiece. Um, for me, when I first heard it, I hadn't really heard anything like that. I was quite young when I heard it, really. And around that time, I was listening to like Soft Cell, Yazoo.
Yeah,
It was
brilliant.
and Ramones. I was getting into punk and what have you. And then so many people are like, "Oh, Joy Division, Joy Division," and so I listened to it, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" And then after sort of 3 or 4 listens, I'm like, "Oh my word!" So yeah, I mean, it just really changed my ears and my life. um, so yeah, I mean, and I can understand that it is many people's favorite album of all time. Um, yeah, wonderful.
Yep,
So
it is. It is, and we will be doing a show on the album as well. So there we have it. That's for future reference. My number 17 is Non-Stop Erotic Cabaret, which also features on one of my other shows. It's just absolutely brilliant. Sort of, it's different for its time. It's got that disco feel. It's poppy. Mark Arman's voice is just brilliant. The production is magnificent on it. There's not an average song on it. Everything's brilliant, from Frustration to Say Hello, Wave Goodbye. When he's basically doing his Scott Walker impersonation at the end
mhm.
there. It's got that sleaze sort of side of things as well that I love with Soft Cell, like Sex Dwarf, CD Films, just brilliant. And there's always, as I always say as well, there's always that little element of Pete Shelley as well about the lyrics, which I really like with regards to Soft Cell. And it is a truly great, and again, another sort of groundbreaking album for its time, for 1981. So that's my number 17, Soft Cell Non-Stop Erotic Cabaret. What have you got at number 16, Peter?
At number 16, I have Crossing the Red Sea with the Adverts by the Adverts.
Great.
Again, and another one that kind of came out of left field for me when when I was young, discovered the Damned, the Pistols, what have you. And then you start to do a deeper dive. And I discovered Killing Joke and what have you. And then this album came along. And I mean, it's just so packed full of hooks. I mean, this has more hooks, I think, than Nevermind the Bollocks. This is really like, it's just absolute
Well, my mate
corker.
Simon's just got into this album recently, so if you're watching, Simon, yeah, you got your reference there. And he's just we were talking about this the other week while we were playing golf, and he was saying what such a great album it is, which it is, of course.
It really is. It's just, it's so incredibly strong. And I know they used to do that thing with the Damned, didn't they? The Damned can play 2 chords, the Adverts can play 1, come see all 3. But it's like, and the track 1 chord, but they really weren't. They really weren't 1 chord wonders. There's, the songwriting is incredibly strong across the whole album. And yeah, fantastic. Love that. Could talk about that one for ages.
Yeah. Well, we'll do a top 10 punk album sometime, and that's definitely in there. It's a great album, actually. It is dead hooky, isn't it? My number 16 is Arcade Fire Funeral. It's just brilliant. Wasn't initially a big album, actually. It got to 33 in the UK. It didn't even make the top 100 in America, which is amazing. Again, I've got the word groundbreaking here. It's just big sounding. It's 80 sounding at points as well. I mean, what freaked me out was the first time that I realized 4 songs got the title Neighborhood in it, which is bonkers.
Yes,
Yeah,
weird.
it's mad, isn't it? But I love the mix, and I love all the instruments. You got guitars and bass and the drums, and then you've got accordions and harps and xylophones. It's just massive at times. The mix is exceptional. The songs are just great. There's some unusual sounds as well, and then you've got things like Neighborhood Power Out, which almost has a U2 feel to it. And then you've got Wake Up, which is one of the most anthemic songs of that decade, and you go and see them live. They're amazing when they do it. The crowd go berserk. Obviously, it's just a truly great album. Could have possibly been higher, but I've got in it in the minute. It's 16, but as you say, you could toss all these up in the angle. But there you go. So 16 for me, Arcade Fire Funeral. What have you got in at 15?
15, I have got Suzanne Vega by Suzanne Vega.
Oh, great. You know what? That's on my list of others. Yeah, absolutely love her. Go on.
Again, this was new to me as a kid. This was the first time I really discovered a woman with guitar, as it were, and just a collection of incredibly beautiful, well written, well crafted, lyrically extremely strong songs. And yeah, just although I was quite young, I really felt like I really connected with a lot of it. And yeah, it's not it was so different to everything else that I was listening to at the time, but it really pulled me in. And I what happened was I heard they broadcast a gig that she did in London on one of the radio stations, and I remember just like I turned it on, and I was just hooked from the minute I heard it. She's got that incredible voice and incredible lyrics, and I was just like, "What am I hearing?" And yeah, just completely fell in love. And when the first album came out, one of those albums that I absolutely played to death,
Yeah.
and still do now.
Yeah,
So
agreed. Agreed. I've just seen her recently as well. I've seen her loads of times. I mean, the first time I seen her was on the whistle test, and she did Small Blue Thing, and it blew me mind. And I fancied her, which probably doesn't help, but there you have it, or does help. And I just thought the album was great. Got it, loved it, played it to death, and I don't think this is an album that I don't like by her. So there you have it. We'll definitely do a Suzanne Vega show. I absolutely love her.
oh, brilliant, yeah.
Great choice. That great choice, and she was on my list of just outsides.
Okay, well, we're doing well then. We're doing well so far.
Yeah, we are. My number 15 here, totally left field a little bit, is Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden from the new wave of British heavy metal from 1980. It's a blend of punk, metal, prog. They've got that Thin Lizzy dual guitars thing going on. The singer, Paul Diano, he sounds a bit like Mark Lamone from The Ruts. And again, The Ruts could have been on my list, yeah, but they don't just quite get in. The album's just superb, really short, really powerful. They've got some fantastic songs on, like Prowler, Running Free. Iron Maiden's a great song itself, and Phantom of the Opera, which used to be the old TV advert with Daley Thompson on, which I absolutely love, and it's 7 minutes long. It's a great metal album. Absolutely love it. Again, created a new sort of sound for the beginning of the 80s, all that new wave of British heavy metal thing that was coming out. Just a top album, a top band, of course, that became huge, absolutely massive. So that's my number. My number 15 is Iron Maiden. What have you got at number 14?
I have got Laser Guided Melodies by Spiritualized.
Oh, right, good.
And yeah, I mean, like so many of these, this sort of came to me and just blew my mind with, and stuff that I'd never really heard before. I hadn't really sort of come across that quite level of space rock. I mean, I'd heard Spacemen 3, but they're much more drone than Spiritualized. And this is, a sort of hybrid of space rock and, dream pop, and he combined the two of them so well there. And the live shows around that time were just well, actually, all Spiritualized live shows generally are intense. He likes a strobe light. But yeah, they were absolutely insane then. And it's just the whole thing is so beautiful and so woven together. I mean, the actual original album was done as 4 movements, as it were, although it's 12 tracks. And yeah, it's just absolutely perfect. If you like your dream pop, if you like that kind of sonic attack, then yeah, Spiritualized Laser Guided Melodies is absolutely the birthplace of all of that. So yeah, that's my number 14.
Yeah, great choice. Well, talking of great live bands, the best live band I ever saw on my number 14, and I've got Queen 1, which is just absolutely superb. It's a really hard rock album. People don't normally associate Queen with this sort of sound because they always think they're slightly later Queen. And this is them when they're really heavy. They're heavier than Led Zeppelin at this point, more closer towards Black Sabbath, early Genesis, The Who, Free maybe as well. Got all of that sort of sounds going on. Some great tunes on it with Keep Yourself Alive, Doing All Right is as heavy as can be. It's almost like I'm Pete Townsend thrashing away on the guitar. Great King Rat and Liar, some of the best intros I've ever heard to songs. Really, really heavy. My Fairy King, you've got that prog-based theme. There's even a sort of, even the weakest track on the album's good, and that's a song called Jesus, bizarrely, by Freddie. But again, it's great. The album is top notch. I think Dave Grohl has it as his favorite ever album or something like that. I know the drummer who sadly died recently had it as his favorite album. Top draw album, Queen one, heavy as hell and absolutely brilliant. Give it a listen, folks. What have you got at number 13?
I have got The Doors and The Doors.
Yeah.
I mean, what can we say about The Doors? The Doors that hasn't already been said. It was the sort of first place that once I started sort of investigating the 60s stuff, and my love of Jefferson Airplane and Janis Joplin and all of that. But I think this was the first, as a sort of 14, 15-year-old or something, this is where I sort of began. Although I got to Light My Fire, and I think Light My Fire has been so abused over the years, like for Love Will Tear Us Apart, one of those songs just been decimated to the point where you just can't hear it. But then it's got The End, and that was such a strange experience, for a kid. And
long when you're a kid, that's a long song.
Yeah. And, again, it was just one of those albums that expanded my mind. So, I mean, this is how I've chosen a lot of these albums. Because as we said, I ended up in about 10 minutes, I had a list of 55 albums. So a lot of my criteria for making the list was about how much they changed things for me. And that's why it's a recurring theme, because, I've put albums in there that really did have a massive effect on me. And sometimes, probably even with a couple on here, that I don't even know if they're good albums. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Because I'm so in love with them because of, what have you. And this is absolutely that. So, yeah, that's it. The Doors.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, because of that, I'm going to change one of my albums now. Then it's 13 for me, and it wasn't going to be at this point, but I'm switching it, so stuff it. I'm putting the Undertones first album, Derry's Finest, just a song of a band of really fast songs about relationships. I had the US version, which had Teenage Kicks on it, which came out slightly later on the year in '79. I know every word of the album. I just know every word on it. Up to about 1982, this was probably my most played album, along with Nevermind the Bollocks. It's just chock full of amphetamine-paced songs, just brilliant song after brilliant song. Male Model, Get Over You, Jimmy, Family Entertainment, Gotta Get Her. Just great. And you've got that unusual, distinctive voice of Fergal Sharkey as well. You've got the O'Neill brothers with their brilliant writing and Fergal's fantastic, catchy voice. It's just brilliant. They were my band as a kid. Everybody has a band, and and I was fortunate enough to meet them once many years ago, and we ended up staying and getting drunk in a bar afterwards. I was
brilliant
along with them, laughing along. It was just great. Really nice guys, and they were my band as a kid. And they were lovely as well. Every one of them was lovely. So, my number 13 there, The Undertones. What have we got at number 12?
Before we go into number 12, I've just got to say, snaps for that, because Get Over You is one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, number 12, I have got Strange House by The Horrors. A strange choice. But I absolutely love this album. you know, a friend of mine, when they introduced me to the Horrors, said, "You have got to listen to this. You love your dirty garage psychedelia 60s one-hit wonders stuff, you know, all that nuggets sort of stuff, you know, all of that kind of stuff. I absolutely love that shit." And she said, "You have to hear the Horrors. You're going to go mad." And of course, when I heard it, I did. You know, it was so nasty, and you know, every song's like 3 minutes long, and it's just chaotic. The live shows were absolutely chaotic. There were a few of us into the band at the time. We would go, we went touring around the country, seeing them, and just to every place that we could. And it was so much fun. It was just a very happy time in my life. And there's no way I couldn't mention the album. It's just, yeah, it was wonderfully nasty. Whether it's any good, a lot of people hate it. A lot of people hated them at the time. When they did the second album, they moved into more sort of adult stuff, and you know, got a bit more recognition, and now, you know, quite respected and what have you. But for me, it's the first album, blistering white hot mess, absolute mess. And yeah, loved it. So that's it.
Great stuff. Well, my number 12 was going to be The Scream, but since you've already done it, I'm removing it. And and I'm putting in The Clash. The first album is just brilliant. 35 minutes of brilliance. You know, Ginny Jones, I'm so bored with the USA, Deny, What's My Name, Garage Land, all superb. Terry Chimes has one only appearance on the albums, very called rightly, before Topper took over. And the whole band are just superb. You know, the playing is, you know, they're not amazing musicians at this point, but they just sound so right. And Garage Land is possibly a song that sums up a band perfectly at this point. And the sound as well, the production on it, even though it's basic, it actually captures the sound perfectly, more than Nevermind the Bollocks does in many respects, because it captures that moment and that sound of what bands were like at the time. So, you know, as I say, my number 12 there is The Clash. What have you got in it next?
Number 11, I have got Trouble Is a Lonesome Town by Lee Hazelwood.
All right.
You know, moving into the sort of alt country section, you know, again, an album that changed things for me. Such a strange album. You know, talk about concept album. You know, he actually talks between each song, and each song links to the next. It's all about a town called Trouble and the characters in it, and he stitches the whole thing together. So much so that they actually wrote, whoever they are, there was a television company that wanted to turn it into a TV show, and a script was written as well to turn this album about a town into a TV show.
He's very cinematic, though, isn't he?
Yes.
Very cinematic.
Yes, he is, and that's something that definitely appeals to me. So yeah, it's you know, it scratches that dark, twisted country itch for me. I personally am not the biggest Johnny Cash fan, so, and that may be because Lee Hazelwood came to me first, and you know, and literally stole my heart with this album. I mean, it's wonderful. It's bizarre, strange, and brilliant. So, that's it.
Great, good choice. Interesting and different. My number 11 is Portishead's debut album, Dummy, which is just fantastic. If we're talking about cinematic, well, this album does that. You know, it's very John Barry. He could have been the perfect Bond band, actually, when I think about it. It's got that trip hop sort of sound, you know, along with their stablemates. You know, you had Massive Attack and you had Tricky, all from the same area, all doing that new sound of 1993, 94 that was coming through. It features the brilliance of Jeff Barrow, Beth Gibbons, Adrian Utley. Again, genre defining. It's one of those albums you're not going to put on during the day, really. It's a nighttime album, but it's just a beautiful nighttime album. The drumming by Jeff Barrow is incredible, because I always thought at first he does lots of little overdubs and all this. No, plays everything live. It's amazing. You think, wow, what a player. What a player. Reading about it, I'll do this as a 10-minute thing, so we'll talk about this in huge depth. But it's very good, just great songs. Glory Box, Sour Times, Numb, all absolutely stupendous. For me, better than any of the other Britpop type albums that followed at the time, that were the other big movement, if you like. For me, this is the one. Number 11 there, Dummy by Portishead, just fantastic. What have you got at number 10?
Number 10, I've got Faded Seaside Glamour by Delays. Again, another one of those albums that, you know, just blew my mind. It's really an odd one in my collection. When I told a friend that I really liked it, she was quite surprised because she's like, that's not usually your sort of thing. It's got that kind of Beach Boys sunny summer Sunday kind of feel to it, you know. It is an album for summer. It's yeah, it's just sparkles throughout the whole thing, and it's a great joy. The album is packed full of happiness and joy, which isn't something that you'll find in generally in my collection. And you know, the absolute classic singles on it, like Long Time Coming and Hey Girl. Yeah, another one of those bands that I was just obsessed with and went following around the country, met many friends through what have you. So yeah, it's just so perfect. And also, again, it's another one that stands up to that repeat listening. You know, thousands of listens later, you're still not bored of it. You're still finding something new. So that's it. Yeah.
Great, good choice. Yeah. Well, my number 10, speaking of sunny dispositions, is The Ramones. Came out in 1976, 29 minutes of absolute genius. Again, genre defining. An album, you know, about relationships, drugs, Nazis, male prostitution. What more do you want in an album? That's what that's what I say. I was actually surprised when I looked at this how many songs Dee Ramone actually wrote on this. I was really shocked. Yeah, really shocked. Clearly influenced the punk and Irish movement that would come along. You know, I mean, this, as I say, I was originally going to swap the Undertones out because this was basically the template for the first Undertones album, if you like. But it's just great. We know the songs: Blitzkrieg Bop, Today Your Love, Tomorrow the World, Want to Be Your Boyfriend, Beat on the Brat. The cover of Chris Montana's Let's Dance. It's just absolutely sunny, powerful, and absolutely magnificent album. Blew my mind when I first heard it. It was later, much after punk, actually, bizarrely, when I first heard this. So a little bit unusual. What a great album. So there we have it for me there. Number 10, The Ramones. What have you got next to the number 9?
Number 9, I have got Scott by Scott Walker.
Yeah.
I mean, just, yeah, absolutely incredible. And I kind of came to Scott Walker through Gillian Cope and Mark Armand, you know, and the Brel covers. You know, I found my way to him through that. And yeah, this is just such, I mean, he went on to do even more amazing albums. But it's so beautiful. Every track on it is it's a definite Sunday afternoon album. Or,
yeah, that's when I listen to Scott Walker. It is Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning as well, actually, if it's not Nina Simone or Aretha. So yeah,
it's very much of that. You know, it's very calming. You know, and also, you know, there's wonderful Jacques Brel covers. You know, and I mean the version of My Death
which
is
clearly influenced David Bowie, who then went on and covered that in Amsterdam. He was Scott Walker's his favorite singer, and you can tell in his voice, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah. I'm sure there's many people who've said many things about that album, but yeah, be my number 9.
Yeah, good choice. Good choice. I was once compared to Scott Walker's singing, but that's another story. I think it's that deep baritone thing going on. My number 9, speaking of great baritones, it's Roxy Music's first album. We've talked about it, so it's on the Roxy Music show, folks. Please go and watch it. We're not going to talk about it too much, but it is absolutely essential listening. It sounds like nothing else. It literally is from a different world. That's all I'm going to say about it. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean. But it sounds like it's from another world. It's a truly great, great album. Go and check it out. Roxy Music's first album, breathtaking, still to this day. So that's my number 9 is Roxy Music. What have you got at number 8?
Number 8, I've got Street Horsing by Fat Buttons.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It is crazy. Again, a whole thing that a genre of music that I really didn't know existed. You know, it just kind of dancey, industrial, weird, psychedelic, undefinable. Actually, it really is undefinable. In the most part, it's instrumental. Yeah, the band were a guy called Andrew Hung and Benjamin John Power. Benjamin John Power went on to do Blank Mass, and who I'm also completely obsessed with. And I could have put the first Blank Mass album in, but I went for this one because it's kind of where it began. And yeah, it is just, I don't know how to describe the music because it's so bizarre. But yeah, just listen to it. It's very psychedelic, but a bit dancey, just a lot of electronics, a lot of insane craziness going on, sampled, distorted vocals. Yeah, like a modern, much easier to listen to Throbbing Gristle, maybe.
Right.
But even then, that's like, no, it's not difficult to listen to, but it is strange.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's my avant-garde choice.
Interesting. Well, speaking of industrial, my number 8 is Iggy Pop's The Idiot.
Oh, okay.
You know, just brilliant. Recorded 76 at the Chateau d'Orville. Bowie recorded Low. Mixed and mastered, though, apparently, by Bowie and Visconti, although he describes it as a salvage job. The album's really a collaboration between Bowie and Iggy. Iggy wrote all the lyrics and Bowie did all the music. It's a great album. It's clearly influenced the likes of Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, Susie, Joy Division, all those sort of bands. You can hear the influences in it. You know, it also blends other influences that he was influenced by, Kraftwerk, Can, rock and funk, and you listen to the songs, they're just great night clubbing. It's just fantastic, which obviously Grace Jones would do a fantastic version of. Sister Midnight, Dum Dum Boys, Fun Time. It's got the much better version of China Girl on it, of course, as well. It's an absolutely sublime album, and it doesn't get played anywhere near enough or mentioned enough, in my opinion, either. The Idiot, just an incredible album. So yeah, there we go. My number 8 is The Idiot by Iggy Pop, which I'll do a special on. Go on, what you got at number 7, Peter?
Can I just say about The Idiot? You can tell it was recorded at Hansa.
Yeah, well, it was mixed at Hansa. It was recorded in France.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's
Yeah,
my
you think? No, I agree. I would have thought so as well. It's badly engineered though by Bowie. Did the bad not recorded it not well, I think is the phrase I'm going to say. And Visconti had
but
to
it all
see
works. It all works.
Yeah.
And let's not digress too much because we'll do an entire show about
we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. Go on, what you got at number 7, Peter?
Well, maybe we'll do an entire show about this one as well, but I don't think so because I know how you feel about it. It's Horses by Patti Smith.
No, I'm happy to give it another go. Go
on. Yeah, again, this was something that I mean, all of the albums here blew my mind. They don't make the top 20 if they don't blow your mind, but this one, absolutely did. From the minute it opens with Jesus died for somebody's sins, but not mine, I'm like all in. I'm listening to every bit of that album that starts like that, and the sort of reggae tinge of Redondo Beach and Kimberley just kind of sort of threw me as well. But it was actually the track Land that comes in 3 parts: Horses, Land of a Thousand Dances, and La Murder. Just, it introduced me to the idea of lyricist as poet, or poet as lyricist, etc. And the whole album's kind of drenched in William Blake, Arthur Rimbaud, William Burroughs, and it opened me up to those worlds as well.
Yep.
I bought the poetry of Rimbaud because of this album, and yeah, it just, and also it's got slightly, it took me into the experimental, the almost, God, what's my word? Free form, improvisation. That's it. It was almost like improvised stuff, but yeah, and an absolute corker of an album.
Oh, I'll check it out again. I'm a huge Blake fan, actually. So yeah, I'll check that out again. No, interesting. No, I will. I'll definitely give it a go because I love Easter. So, which I've mentioned here. My number 7 is Stiff Little Fingers, Inflammable Material. It's absolutely just brilliant. It's raw, it's visceral. This is the sort of second wave of punk that came along after the Pistols and the Clash and the Damned and Buzzcocks. You then got like SLF, Undertones, Ruts, all those other great bands. So, I mean, this band probably, alongside the Undertones, so 2 bands from the north of Ireland, or Northern Ireland, depending on which side of the fence you're on, they just blew my mind at the time, the albums, it's just, it summarizes up a lot of what was going on in Ireland at the time, north of Ireland, with regards to the Troubles. It's packed with killer tracks. You can hear the fury and the power of Suspect Device. We've got other tracks like Alternative All Star, and Barbed Wire Love. Wasted Life's just superb. Sums up what was going on, what was like as a teenager as well at the place at the time. The cover of Johnny Was, was transported to Belfast. The Bob Marley song is brilliant, although better on Hanks, may I add. It's just an absolutely superb album. The lyrics are great by the band and the journalist Gordon Ogilvie. Absolutely superb. There's only one gripe, is that the last track's not very good, which is Closed Groove, and for me should have had 78 RPM on it. Well, that's by the by. Just a fantastic album. You just hear the opening blast of Suspect Device. You go, oh my God, that's brilliant, and it's like, it's really, really powerful. So that's my number 7, SLF, Inflammable Material. What have you got at number 6?
I have got the Velvet Underground and Nico.
Yeah.
Velvet Underground and Nico. I mean, again, what can you say about this that hasn't already been said? It is an incredible album. Nico sounds amazing. This was, my introduction to both John Cale and Nico, who I'm kind of obsessed with, more so personally than Lou Reed. And I just think they made a sound that no one else was making in 1967.
Yeah.
And I personally, we know that was down to John Cale, really, and Nico's vocals. It's it's a template that many bands went on to rip off, from Mary Chain to Place to Bury Strangers. It just, everyone pretty much in my collection.
Everybody, everybody. I mean, even Bowie was influenced by it. You've got later bands like Echo and the Bunnymen and all those sort of people sort of list it, don't they? The Smiths, all that sort of thing.
Everyone that came after this album was influenced by this album, and probably should be number 1, but as I say, I'm not really doing these in order anyway, and my number 1 is a very personal album. So yeah.
Good. Well, my number 6 is The Specials. The Specials debut album, which came out in 79. It captures a time. It's that mix of punk, ska. It also created a new time where punk was almost put to the side a little bit. The new wave movement was going on, and you created this new thing. And I was like 10 years of age when this came out, and it was like, wow, what the hell is this? This is brilliant, you know. The album's a collection of originals and covers. There's quite a few covers on this, which are all great. A proper game changer album for me. Starts off with Message to You, Rudy, although the later versions and the downloads all start off with Gangsters, which works as well, to be fair. It's an album of just bangers, as my kids would call it. Various tempos, Nightclub, Little Bitch, You're Wondering Now. It's got the slow version of Too Much Too Young. And then you got the references to sort of what was going on in society in terms of race. Doesn't make it all right. It's just fantastic. SLF as well, I mentioned earlier on, they do a great version of this. And then you got Concrete Jungle. Again, it's absolutely superb. Also helped out, the band are brilliant. Again, a black and white band, which I just love that aspect of it. And then you got the old man Rico, who I once met, was one of the nicest men I've ever met, by the way, who was on the trombone. What an album. So I absolutely love it. It gets played loads. My kids love it as well, which is just as great. So you got number 6, you got the Specials. What have you got at number 5?
I've got Throwing Muses by Throwing Muses.
Yeah.
A complex album. You know, they were the first American band to sign to 4AD. And for me, 4AD is one of those labels that I trust. 4AD, Mute, and recently Sacred Bones. It's like, I'll just listen to anything if it's on that label. I'll give it a go. You know, so yeah, they were the first American band to sign to 4AD. And there's similar sound in some ways to the Pixies, but it is far more complex. And they were ahead of the Pixies, and I think they're a better band than the Pixies. I've never quite sort of been able to put my finger on why it is that I don't rate the Pixies as highly as other people do. You know, it seems you get people that are insanely obsessed with the Pixies. Yeah. And I think that's because I'm a hardcore Throwing Muses fan. And when you're that deep in something, you don't necessarily need, oh, let's be bitchy, it's Pale Imitator.
I love the Pixies. I think Frank Black's solo albums are fantastic. Well, there you go. Go on.
I love the Pixies. They're fine. They're great. They're fun. They're good. They're a good, possibly great band. But Throwing Muses are at that time were an astonishing band, and this is one hell of a complex album. It took me a while to get into it, but I can remember clearly the day that it all fell into place. It all fell into place at the same time. One listen, I just got it. And it's an album of spiky, weird songs. There's no cymbals or hi-hats throughout the whole thing. Dave Narciso's drumming is just stripped back. And yeah, again, lyrically, this is poetry as lyrics. You know, Kristen Hirsch, possibly even better lyricist than Patti Smith. I don't know, but yeah, at that time, and also she was fucking 19 when she recorded this. That's like you know, yeah, incredible. 19.
Yeah,
that's
great stuff.
Good on them. So yeah, Throwing Muses.
Right. Well, my number 5 is Magazine Real Life. I absolutely love this album. It's absolutely top draw. It's one of the early post-punk albums for me, arguably the best. It seems to mix punk, prog, indie. It's also got that gothic feel as well, adopted by Joy Division slightly later. I mean, the musicianship is unbelievable. I mean, Barry Adamson on bass, he would go on to Visage and the Bad Seeds, of course, with Nick Cave. Just what a player he is. You got Dave Formula on keys, who was in Visage as well. You got John McGeoch, who we've mentioned already, with Susie and the Banshees. But before, of course, he was with Magazine, and then he would do Pill before his untimely death. The ultimate post-punk guitar player. And then Devoto, a very clever frontman, lyrically superb, very clever, ingenious singer. He's not a great singer. but he's got his style, and that's all that matters. And it absolutely works superbly. I love the fact that Pete Shelley gets 2 credits on it as well, which is marvelous. The groove on the album is great. The production by John Leckie is superb. It's a top draw album. I do love the proggy aspects to this album, though. There really is, and there's loads of space and all that weird spacey sort of keyboard thing going on, do 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 do, and all that going on, and then loads of gaps. I mean, the drummer was oddly in Swing Out Sister as well, which I didn't know. There you have it. It is just an incredible album, actually, an incredible album. So there we have it. That's my number 5, Real Life Magazine. What have you got at number 4?
Number 4, I have got The Smiths. The Smiths.
Right.
And for me, it is my favorite Smiths
Really?
album. Yeah, I mean, I didn't put Non-Stop Erotic Cabaret in because The Art of Falling Apart is I am obsessed with. But this is my favorite Smiths album. I got this when it came out, I was 14. I remember I got it for my birthday. Like the one time my parents bought me a record. And within 2 years, I needed to buy a new copy because I had worn it out. And that's the only time I've ever worn out a record. I can't tell whether it's any good or not, really. I know a lot of people think Queen is Dead is their best album, etc. But for me, it's just, this is where it came in, and, the first cut is the deepest,
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, I think.
Also, I love Morrissey using the falsetto on this. And the lyrics that made me laugh out loud, Miserable Lie is, never credit him for his humor, but Miserable Lie is absolutely just fucking hilarious song. Yeah, and just perfect Smiths album for me. It just really, it's part of my heart. So that's that.
No, good. Well, my number 4 was the other game changer for me when I was a kid, and it's Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks. It's just great, man. Number 1 in the UK, but only got 106 in America. I think it's actually one of those albums that's sort of, in a funny sort of way, has become underestimated now in terms of the impact that it had. Because you listen to it now and they sound like a rock band, funnily enough. They weren't fast and powerful like the Damned or, fast like the Ramones. They sounded more like the Faces than they sounded like the Damned, for example. But it's just a great album. The production by Chris Thomas is not the first time I'll say this, by the way, is brilliant. It's the only shame for me on this whole album is that Matlock's only on 1 track, even though he co-wrote most of them. It's just brilliant. The band is superb. Cook, great drummer. Jones, obviously a terrific guitarist, and it's just a shame that Matlock's not playing bass on most of them. Life-changing songs for me. You got God Save the Queen, Pretty Vacant, Holidays in the Sun, all the classics. I mean, the first time I heard Bodies, I almost fell over.
Yes.
And I had the album version where Bodies was on side 2, and it wasn't. So I don't know how that works, but I got it in 78 or something in the album, or 79, and I had the version with Bodies on side 2. So there you have it. But it's just a fantastic album. It's still powerful. I put it on. My kids love a number of the tracks on it as well, which is also odd but lovely in a strange sort of way. So yeah, never should be underestimated. Number 4,
no.
Sex Pistols, Nevermind the Bollocks. What have you got at number 3?
Number 3, I have Sackcloth and Ashes by 16 Horsepower.
Oh, I mean, mate, a massive fan of them. Yeah, go on.
Oh, really? Oh, good. Yeah, another album that changed my life. It really introduced me into the dark country, alt country sort of thing. Blending that Bad Seeds with Johnny Cash kind of sound. but really, you know, making it very their own, very unique, and you know, layered instrumentation throughout the whole thing. Just yeah, without going, I can't talk about this album without it going on for like ages. It's hard to pick out like, you know, a track to just make to me, but American Wheeze for me with the mad accordion in it is just an absolute stomp. The whole album is, you know, it's Southern Gothic, it's just wonderful. And yeah, it's yeah, it introduced me to the whole other world. And David Eugene Edwards, was the lead singer and writer, also did was in the Crime of City Solution, who Mick Harvey and Roland S. Howard worked with as well. So that's what I call my kind of musical family, you know, that whole gang. And yeah, it's very much part of my musical family. And yeah, it's if you like your twisted dark country, check it because it's astonishing. So yeah.
We'll give it a blast. Look forward to it, actually. Well, my number 3 is it's just fantastic. Ian Dury and the Blockheads, New Boots and Panties. From the remnants of the Kilburn and the High Roads. I'll probably do a show on this, to be honest. It's just a great album. Great. The band, the musicianship is unbelievable. Ian Dury once said he wanted the band to be the equal of Steely Dan, and they are. You know, and I love Steely Dan. And the musicianships are great, you know, Chaz Chankle, who helped co-write the songs, Charlie Charles on drums, Mickey Gallagher from Up My Way here on keyboards, John Turnbull from up here as well on guitar, Norman Watt-Roy, one of the greatest bass players of all time. The band are just superb. And Ian Dury just creates all these little pictures, these little stories, these little vignettes he's got of like different characters. You've got Billy Ricky Dickey, Plaistow Patricia, Clever Trevor, all these characters. Really funny. His lyrics are really, really funny, aggressive, really, you know, really harsh at times, can make you roar laughing or spit your drink out at times, and then really tender with My Old Man, or really sort of loving and sexual with, you know, Wake Up, Make Love to Me. So he you know, he covers a range of things. What a great lyricist he was. And like we were saying before, when people do an album that's unbelievable, they never reach the level again. This for me is a prime example, as was the Bollocks, of course. This is a prime example. It's just brilliant. This could have been my number 1. My 1, 2, and 3, I would literally throw them up in the air, and I had to discuss today which ones I was going to order and put them in. Just the way it felt today. This could easily be number 1. So my number 3 there, Ian Dury and Blockheads, New Boots and Panties. What have you got at number 2?
Number 2, I have the only metal album in my list, sort of metal, Scenes from the Second Story by the God Machine. What an incredible piece of work. And it predates grunge, but it does that. It's not really straight up metal. It's really, you know, it's through the art school filter. It's very Jane's Addiction, that
All
kind
right.
of.
Yeah. Okay.
But it also does much more fragility than Jane's Addiction ever did. You know, this is it's more like a very heavy Cure. If you like the Cure, you're gonna love the God Machine. You know, also I saw them live once. It was the loudest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, boy, did they play loud. And they didn't really get much recognition in their time. Sadly, they only made 2 albums. They were finishing the second album when their bassist, Jimmy Fernandez, had a brain hemorrhage and died.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. It was really weird. One day I was working in the office, and we had a freelancer in, and I put the God Machine on, and this girl turned around and she said to me, "That's the God Machine." And I'm like, yeah. She's like, I said, "You know them?" And she's like, "Know them? I knew them." She said, "I designed all the covers." And
oh, wow.
and yeah, so we had this mass, and she had dinner with Jimmy the night before he died, and like that was like an insane moment for me, meeting someone that had dinner with Jimmy Fernandez. I mean, it's such a blinding album, so much so that an Australian writer actually then put together a group of friends and they wrote a book, which is just here, scenes from the second story,
Oh,
and it's short stories all based around the tracks. um so I would, if there's one album on this list that I would want people to listen to, it would absolutely be this one, because it will blow your mind apart. It is,
I look forward to hearing it. I've never heard of it, so I'm looking forward to it.
there's nothing new in there. There's nothing, I mean, I think it might have been at the time, but it is that, it's the Art School, the Cure, but with heavy, heavy guitars.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you know, if you like your Maiden and stuff like that, then
yeah, yeah.
it's, yeah, imagine Iron Maiden mixed with the Cure. You got it.
Oh, I look forward to it. I look forward to it. Well, my number two, as I say, could have been my number one, and this was a real tough one, actually. I was really, still not sure. My number two, Texas Midnight Runners, Searching for the Young Soul Rebels. 1980 came out, captures the time perfectly. Um, it's just a sublime album. I will be doing a show on it, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. Um, it just oozes class. It's got a soul ethos to the album. The horns are magnificent. The band is absolutely cooking on gas. I know they did partially the two-tone tour, but it's not a ska album. It's more of a soul album. And it's just brilliant. Roland's voice is great. You can tell the influences of Ferry and Boy and all that sort of stuff going on. What a magnificent, rich baritone voice. Hit singles, obviously, Gino, They're My Dear. It's got literature references to it as well. Again, this is an album with a manifesto. And it's odd because they only live up to the manifesto for about a year and a half, and then the band collapses, and it's a totally different follow-up album with two right here. It's totally different, equally brilliant, but in a different manner. So yeah, They're My Dear. It was a great song, but Searching for the Young Soul Rebel, it's just an incredible album. It really is an incredible album. Dex is just one of my favorite ever bands. So there we go. That's my number two. What have you got in at number one?
Number one, I have From Her to Eternity by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Yeah.
We know, I've mentioned before my love for the Birthday Party. And it could have been the first Birthday Party album, but well, actually, no, it couldn't, because it's not as good as this. Yeah, 7 tracks of absolute insanity, starting with the cover version of Leonard Cohen's Avalanche, which introduced
Yes.
me to Leonard Cohen.
Great song.
And you know, Nick's version of that is, I mean, Leonard Cohen is one of the darkest Leonard Cohen songs, and that's quite a lot to say. But Nick makes it even darker. And you know, the list of players on this, you've got Nick Cave, Blix Zabargo, Mick Harvey, Anita Lane, Barry Adamson, Hugo Race, you know, and also JG Thirlwell, who went on to do all the Fetus stuff. You know, this is my musical family. You know, these the people that mixed with the Mark and the Mambas and all that kind of stuff. You know, there was so much around this time that seemed to be that JG Thirlwell was kind of linked in with in some ways. You know, Lydia Lunch and all of that. It just, you know, so much great stuff came from this camp. It has his Nick Cave's twisted songs on it. You know, it's the full Southern Gothic again, and he was in full flight at this point. You know, the fact that I learned later on that he'd never been to the American South is just kind of strange, because you know, right through to like tracks like Saint Huck, you know,
Yep.
which is a reimagining of Huckleberry Finn. It just very, very twisted tunes. The whole thing, like musically, it is kind of stripped back. It's not the noise of the Birthday Party. It's not the full-on sonic assault at all. It's if the Birthday Party did ballads, this is more what it could be kind of like. It contains one of my favorite songs of all time, Box for Blackpool, 9 minutes of just Nick and the piano grinding through this sort of bizarre story that he actually then, I think the whole album really influenced his book, and The Ass or the Angel, which is an amazing book. And yeah, just really, really changed my life. It's so deeply personal to me. And I mean, I got into Nick when The Mercy Seat came out. So that was whenever it was,
Yeah.
87, 88. But it was when I heard this, I went back through the catalogue, and when I got to this, it was like, this is just, I lost myself in this album for so long. Yeah, and it is, I wouldn't say it's a perfect album because it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a sprawling mess. And it does that well. And I like that. You know, I've said that about a couple of my albums, you know, a bit of a sprawling mess. But it's drenched in, you know, literary references and what have you. And yeah, it is just dark, fantastic, wonderful, chaos, all of those things. So yeah, From Her to Eternity, Nick
Good,
Cave's Bad Seeds.
good stuff, excellent stuff. In fact, well, my number one, again, could be any of the top three really, but my number one is the Pretenders' first album. It's just brilliant. Came out in December '79. Um, you've got an amazing band. Chrissy Hines, what a singer she is. Martin Chambers is great drummer. James Honeyman Scott and Pete Fondon, sadly no longer here, but both great musicians. I mean, James Honeyman Scott's one of the great guitar players. He's clearly the link between punk rock, pub rock, and the Smiths. He's that sort of link. Um, it's a masterpiece album of moods and tempos. It fluctuates in terms of the moods continuously through the album. It's got songs of sort of love, abuse, and pain as well. You've got like the snarl of Precious. You've got the abuse lyrics of Tattoo Love Boys. You've got the sadness of kids, really. You know, you've got Private Life, which she accepts that Grace Jones's version's even better, which 6 and 2, both amazing. It's just an incredible album. Again, brilliant production by Chris Thomas. That's 3 albums that he's got on my top 20 there. It's just absolutely outstanding. It's a great, great album. The Pretenders have done other great albums, by the way. The second album's great. They've done 2 or 3 other great albums. Last the Independence is excellent. But this is the best, and it's just an incredible album. It really is. It's a game changer. It's just such a shame that they just didn't live long enough to see what they could have went on to as well. But what an album it is, and if that's all you're going to do in life, what a statement! What an
Yes.
absolute statement. So there we go. My number one is the Pretenders.
Excellent.
Folks, yeah, let us know what your lists are. Don't write 20 because we'll be there all year. But give us 5 or 10. That'll be great. And we'll look forward to seeing what they are and giving our views as well. You know, as I say, there's never any right answers. We've missed a number of albums off, so I'll just read out some of the examples I've got written down here. I'm pleased you said Suzanne Vega though, but there's a number of albums that could have made it, and I've got stuff like I've got Television, of course.
Oh yes.
One of the obvious ones. The Alarm, I Love Declaration, Talking Heads, Supergrass, Bill Withers, The Band. There's others I checked. I was going to put the Wailers in, but then I realised that there's been about 4 or 5 other albums on other labels before they did the first proper big album, as it were. So Robert Cray could have been in, Alan Hull, Yazoo,
Yes.
Stranglers. Should have been in Kate Bush, Pearl Jam. There's loads of really great debuts. The Beat was my other one as well. That could have been my top 5, really. So there we go. Anything else that jumps to mind for yourself there, Peter?
I had The Miracle by Lisa Gerrard.
Yeah.
And the first Dead Can Dance album. Definitely contenders. The first This Immortal Coil album. But that was surpassed by their second album. And then The Runaway Found by The Veils, one of my favorite albums. I'm really pleased that you chose the Pretenders because incredible album. I think what else was on? I had a list, like I say, like 55
Yeah.
at one point. Yeah, I mean, there's so many.
So did I. I mean, I've got the two at the bottom here. I had Grace by Jeff Buckley. I had the Jimi Hendrix album on there. I had the Arctic Monkeys actually literally about an hour before the show on my list.
Right.
So it was just sort of chipping them down and working out what could and couldn't be in. But it's all down to tastes. And as I say, ask us tomorrow. Well, I'm sure we'll have different lists.
Yeah, because Block Party was one that went on and
Yeah,
off and on and off my list
yeah.
as well. Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah.
Whip It On by the Ravenettes as
Oh,
well.
right, okay. And
Yeah,
B-52 is another one I was going to see as well.
yes, that could go on. Oh, A Place to Bury Strangers by A Place to Bury Strangers.
Right, folks, we'll stop there before we go on forever. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Leave us your lists, and until next time, look after yourself, okay? And we'll see you soon with these little specials based on these. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh.